Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Courage Talks. Special guest today is Jangvi Dangiti, an analog and a budding astronaut hoping to make a deep impact in the space mission. Welcome, Janvi.
Hi, Hitul.
A
Thanks for
lot of
having me
people,
here.
thank you. A lot of people might know what you are today, but a lot of people might not know about your background. So, why don't you just take us down memory lane? Tell us something about your childhood.
Okay, I'm from a very small town filled with lush green paddy fields and fresh rivers. And I actually live in the banks of River Godavari. I'm from Palkollu. I was born and brought up here. And my parents moved to a different country when I was 1 year old, leaving me with my grandparents. And I grew up in a very, I would say, freedom. I had a lot of freedom to explore everything that I see. Every day I used to listen bedtime stories. And one among those stories which fascinated me so much towards space was Chandamama Katalu, which it's a Telugu name. And they used to mention about a lady that actually gives you toys and chocolates whoever go to moon. So it's a fairy tale story, and that was I think that's a spark which started in me. Like, I should go there someday. I should get toys from that lady who's living on moon. That's
Yeah.
the origin. And growing up, when someone asked me, how do you want to go to space? I have no idea. I'd never know that people have already been to moon or already, like, I didn't know that there is this thing called NASA or ISRO, which takes people to space. There's this vehicle, like rocket, that launches humans to space. I didn't know anything about it. Always, I used to think building a big ladder can take me to the moon. That's what I used to think going to moon is actually mean. And as I grew up, I learned about Apollo missions, and slowly I realized we have one organization, that is ISRO, and we are launching rockets. And that's how I slowly started learning. At the same time, I realized I'm very far from what I'm dreaming about, like extremely distinct dream. I know I have no clear path, but what all I know was I have to start somewhere to reach there, taking the first step, I can say. The first step was always being closer to STEM, because what I learned was to be an astronaut, you have to be having a degree in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yep.
So I used to be very active in all the science fair projects in the school, whatever happens in and around. I used to give my active presentation, whether winning or losing, it's secondary. It's not just about education, it's also about sports and everything. I used to be really active in everything that I do. That's how my childhood was. Growing up very happily, not really bothered about anything, just dreaming of going to moon someday. And yeah, I used to be a very active kid in the school. I always used to have complaints like, we can't control your girl, she's very active. That's kind of complaints that my parents used to get.
Who do you blame this for? Your dad or your mom? Where are the genes of activity or super hyperactivity coming from?
I have no idea, because I barely visit my parents like once in a year. I think my dad is the most craziest guy. Like, he has so many crazy stories when he was a kid. So I think it's my dad's.
Tell me one of your dad's story.
Okay. He's also from a different village, but not from the place where I'm living right now. And he has like 11 nephews, and they grow up along with my dad. So there's a lot of age gap between his and his brother and all. So the younger nephew, he used to be always with my dad. And one day they were eating something in dark, like in pitch dark, because back then there's no electricity and all. They used to have this small lamp, and they used to just use it to see other people. And they both were having dinner one night. And suddenly my dad started acting weird by showing a piece of chapati or something in the air, calling someone, come have it. And this guy started freaking out, and he started crying like anything. And slowly my dad came back and, okay, it's not like, don't do it, don't. He did so many other things I can't actually get right away, but yeah, he's a very crazy kid.
But your dream to go to space someday changed, transformed or got really triggered during the visit to NASA sometime?
Actually, when I begin, even till today, if someone asks me how you're going to go to space, I have no clear path. I'm giving what all I can give at the moment. I'm just getting prepared or making myself prepared when someone opens an opportunity for someone like me to go to space. I should be ready. I shouldn't feel regret that I don't have those qualifications, and I'm just building myself step by step to be there one day or someday. And yes, it's still there. When I visited NASA, it gave me more confidence because every astronaut has a different story, and every story is not a simple thing. Every story has a very deep struggle. I learned so many stories, and one among those was Chris Hadfield, and he's my biggest inspiration. And everyone has their own story, including Sunitha Williams, Kalpana Chawla. And becoming an astronaut itself, having a dream of becoming an astronaut itself, a very big thing. That's what I feel. And someone achieving there, and their stories are actually laying us a path to dream big. And yes, we don't belong to sky, we belong to space.
Very interesting. And when did you visit this? How old were you when you went to NASA?
When I visited NASA Center, I was like 18.
Okay.
First time when I visited Alabama Center, I was 18.
Okay. And what were you there for? What took you there in the first place?
I was there for a space camp kind of thing.
Okay.
So usually there's this company called EXA. It's a Mexican company. And it selects people all over the world. Every year they select 60 students. And I was the first Indian to get selected for that program. They actually collaborate with NASA because NASA has different centers. One is Kennedy, one is Alabama. Alabama is where actually kids have a space camp, and also they get trained as an astronaut for like 1 week. Not the real peak training of an astronaut, but they'll give you the glimpse of how an astronaut undergo through training. So that was a program that I've been selected, and I was there for like 1 week and experienced everything from the place. And
what was it about you that you think helped you in your selection for this space program? Any particular aspect that they gave you a feedback about in terms of what worked for you?
Actually, they had an one-to-one interview. It was like 6 years ago. I barely remember, but they had one-to-one interview, and they asked several questions, like a few are technical about space and how space works and etc. And few other, like mostly it is related to what I did from my childhood to be in space someday, or what I'm really interested, or why I'm really interested, and how I can bring a change in my life by doing this program. And
did you tell them about your grandmother's stories?
yeah, I did. I share this with everyone. I don't know if you've seen my interviews before, but whenever I go to some place, I definitely share it because grandparents are the best. Like, they're the best.
No, I can clearly see the love that you have for your grandmother.
Grandmother, grandfather, both.
Among the many activities that you indulge in was scuba diving. And is there a correlation between scuba and your dream of going to the space? Is there a correlation?
Yes. So when I was reading some books and learning about going to space, I realized that if you want to go to space, you also have to survive underwater, because all your buoyancy training is going to be underwater. Even at NASA or any space agency, if you want to go to space, you definitely have to get trained underwater, because water is the only place where it mimics the closeness of zero gravity or microgravity. So that's the reason I started scuba diving. I started swimming first when I was so young. And then I slowly started my diving classes from Visakhapatnam. That's where I started my first dive class or whatever. And slowly, actually, I started diving to be an astronaut. But slowly, I realized how much I'm attached to the oceans as well. So I decided to do an advanced course of it. So I started doing advanced scuba diving from Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And I became one of the India's youngest advanced scuba divers. I also learned how to do coral replantation from my instructor, who is Madman Subhash Chandran. And he's an amazing guy. And I'm always thankful for him for guiding me. And he always taught me one thing, that great things always take time, and difficult roads often leads to beautiful destinations. Because before I explore deep inside the oceans, he's the one who pushed me to undergo through every condition of the ocean and made me very friendly with the ocean. And that's not an easy thing for someone who doesn't know how to swim. Going all the way directly into the ocean, it's a very big thing. And he made me survive in that.
Yeah, as part of my Ironman training, I need to learn swimming in the open water. And trust me, once you start swimming in the ocean, you don't want to go back to a swimming pool ever again.
Swimming pool, never. I hate being in swimming pool, honestly.
Yeah. And I had avoided scuba for a while. I don't know. I mean, there was no particular reason to, but last October I was in Barcelona and I went to the famous place Costa Brava, and I actually
Wow,
did my first
scuba
scuba dive.
experience.
It was just a 9 meter, that beginning thing, but it did give me a glimpse of what I can expect. The serenity, the calmness of the water, the
Yes.
small life deep under
Mm.
the surface.
The world underwater is quite different from the world that we are watching with our eyes on. I would
Yeah,
definitely suggest people to give a try with the at least once in their life, if not scuba diving, at least do have an experience of snorkeling. Even that gives you a very good experience.
very true. So you've done scuba at multiple places. Where all have you
Yes,
gone?
yes. Yeah, I did once in Vizag, once in Goa. Like the first dive was in Goa, then in Visakhapatnam, then in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It was in Havelock, and then once in USA.
Right. And what are the deepest that you've gone to?
I think 36 meters or something.
Wow. And how long was that? That was like a 2 hour thing or less?
No, no, no. The deeper we go, we can't spend more time underwater. So I
Right.
think it was very short period, like 15 to 20 minutes. That's it.
Okay. Got it. Makes sense. And then you have the experience of watching the rocket launch mission as a mission director. Tell us the whole story about it.
Oh, mission director thing, and actually it's a simulation. So I told you about this program from IXR,
Yeah.
Indian
Yeah.
International Air and Space Program.
Yeah.
Here there will be multiple teams, and for one team, Team Kennedy, I'm the mission director.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission is to launch people. We are actually simulating this. It's not like we are actually launching a rocket, but a simulation. For the whole mission, Mission Orion, I was a mission director.
Very interesting.
That was
And
fun. As a kid, doing all of that, I really enjoyed. It gave me very good confidence, actually.
so does the virtual mission also give you goosebumps the way the real one does?
Yeah, it did. When actually humans launched on the moon, it was a very good experience.
Very interesting. And tell us about the lunar analog habitat in Poland. What is that all about and what was the experience like?
So, analog astronauts are someone who mimics space on Earth. So,
Okay.
before we actually launch people or civilize a moon or Mars, someday we have to be actually get used to isolation and psychologically prepared and physically prepared for such extreme environmental conditions, because I'm sure first set of humans who are going to step on moon and Mars, they're definitely gonna not have comfortable atmosphere or the life, because first set of people definitely have to go there and create a space where other humans can live to survive in that extreme environments or to perform experiments which actually so being in that isolation, like the lunar simulation that you were asking, it's actually you will be isolated from outside world. It depends on the mission duration that you chose. It can be 10 days or it can be 1 month or it can be 2 months, and NASA do missions for 1 year.
Yeah.
And the lunar mission that I did was like 20 days or something. And during that time, we had a crew of 6 people, and we are working on different experiments to know how it behaves in isolation and
Okay.
in such extreme conditions. And I was working on hydroponic systems, and one is working on robotics, one is working on kombucha. Everyone has their own roles, and I was an astrobiologist during that mission. And we don't have a regular schedule. We actually live in lunar time zone, and we perform everything according to that. The food we have is also going to be different. Either it will be freeze dehydrated or some other thing. And they also make you get used to the protocols, just the emergency protocols, how you have to respond when you are simulating the whole mission of going to lunar surface, like moon surface. And
Yeah.
you cannot directly pee into a commode. You have to collect the pee in a bottle and then like a tunnel, and then you have to measure how much water you have been taken, how much actually you are letting it out. And based on our psychological conditions, whether the values are changing or not, it's like a lot of research and stuff. So I did when I was 18. I did my first analog mission when I was 18, and I was the youngest in AATC that time.
That looks like a lot of heavy lifting with a lot of things to be learned at the same time in a short period of time.
Yes, yes.
One aspect which stood out as the most difficult or something that you dislike the most?
Food. Food. This journey started like 6-7 years ago, but till today, I can't survive. Like the only problem that I have during my missions or training is my food. So I just started relying on McDonald's wherever I go.
So what
Yeah.
was it about the food that you didn't like? It the taste, or it was there was no
Masala. See, we are from South India, and beating something when biryani tastes very sweet there, so I don't want to eat something that actually spoils the original flavor. My brain doesn't want to take that fake biryani taste. So it's not about just biryani, but see, we usually have heavy meals. And the entire crew is from different parts of the world. And I don't think anyone is really into this heavy meals like
Yeah.
I do, like most of the time, the crew that I worked with. And they used to have a simple meal. And for me, I usually eat in intervals, like in breaks. But in missions, it doesn't work like that. Either you have to sit and eat everything at a time or nothing. Like you're not going to have anything. You can't just go eat whenever you want to eat. So because you're going to spoil the entire schedule of other people also.
That's true. Then there was another training in Iceland. What was that all about? And why don't you walk us through what was the experience like?
Iceland was a field mission, so it was not an isolated mission. It's a field expedition, and it's by Iceland Geospace. And we were in Highlands and other places where Neil Armstrong and other Apollo astronauts once got trained for their Apollo mission. So that's the place where we went to explore and learn about the geology of Iceland. And crew from different parts of the world came there again, and it was a pretty good experience. And there happens a Space Icelandic festival or something. People from different parts of the world, like space. What connects us is space. So whoever is interested in space, they actually come in there and they kind of do a good celebration, and we do our expedition, share our journeys and experiments or things that we're working on.
Interesting. How long was that stint?
That was like 1 week. 1 week.
Okay. Got it. And mixing with people from different parts of the world must have been a different experience altogether.
Yeah, it was very good experience. I heard a lot of stories, but all my experiences was really good. That's what. So everyone always been very nice to me. And see, we might be coming from a different background or different regions of the world, but what connects us is the sky that calls space. So we are coming under the sky of space, and almost all of them have this similar mindset or similar interest in this field. And I felt very normal with engaging with other country people or people from different parts of the world. It always gives me good energy listening to their stories and understanding their own perspective of life and their own cultures and traditions. It always gives new energy. Interacting with people from different parts of the world always makes me feel better because learning about different perspectives of life, different experiences and different stories and everything will definitely make you think differently from what you're doing, like what your brain is right now. I love interacting with people and learning about their cultures and traditions,
Yeah. Ever felt homesick during these long travels of yours?
No, not really. Never. I don't feel homesick anytime, but I feel home food sickness sometimes. Yeah, that's the only thing.
By the time you actually go to space, I'm sure you're going to carve out some desi
Yeah,
version.
I will find something. I will find some or the other way. There are some ways. I think Subhanshu Shukla has taken some Indian food into space. I think we can do it.
And I read somewhere you had a surreal experience during the possum training. Tell us what's possum training all about and what did that involve?
POSUM is a different institute where you will be getting trained under different conditions, not exactly as an astronaut, but the trainings that an astronaut undergo. But doing an POSUM program doesn't actually, qualify as an astronaut or something. But this is kind of an experience where you will undergo through an hyperbaric chamber, and also they'll put you in an extra 300 flight. They actually use this Noctius Lint cloud data to do research. They actually do their flights for this Noctius Lint cloud research and all of that. So I did advanced post academy program, and that was like 1 week program, and I had a very good experience working in IVA suits, donning off and IVA suits and doing simulations of space flight and also the hyperbaric chamber. Extra 300 flight was my favorite. It's an aerobatic plane and you experience G's, and it tells you how many G's you can actually go through and feel happily or strength or you will understand how it feels to be under high G's, but it's not like for a very long time. It actually gives you a shot in seconds of experience, and that's somewhere like 1.5 hours of flight or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So all these trainings that you've gone through, simulating lunar surface, zero gravity, are they purely physical or it's more of mental than physical? I mean, how would you rate the balance? Because I'm coming from a space of physical endurance, and we all talk about physical endurance being more mental than physical because, beyond a point, the
Yeah.
body will just carry on. How is
Yeah.
it like, especially with low oxygen, or you need to adjust your entire lifestyle? Can it be, it's more mental, more physical? What's the verdict?
From my personal experience, I'll tell you one thing. I've seen people who are being very, very strong physically coming to a mission, and they'll be very exciting, happy, cheerful for first 3-4 days. And then the actual mental game starts, and then they start forgetting about their physical strength and they'll become very weak. It's very important to have the strength in your brain, or your mental strength is going to play a very crucial role,
Mm-hmm.
because during my last mission, I had really bad injury for my finger, and I
Mm-hmm.
was not allowed to do any EVAs, but I was mentally strong that I'm not going to quit. I had to ask my comms and directors and other people, requesting them to let me go and do my EVA, because I'm from other side of the world, came all the way to this side of the world to do this. And I was mentally strong. They didn't let me do it for 5 missions, like 5 days, straight 5 days. And from the sixth day, I don't know what made them to let me go, but actually I was also feeling better with my finger, and they said you can go now. And if I lose my mental strength, or if I ever felt low during this point, I wouldn't have made it to the sixth day doing the EVA, which they gave me permission for. It always depends on your mindset and the perspective that you have, and that plays a major role. Even if you are about to die, if you still have a strength and courage in your brain, you can still actually make a difference. But I don't say physically weak. Being physically weak can also put you in or make you a successful mission. I don't say that. You
Yeah.
have to be physically fit, but mentally being fit actually plays major role. That's what
I
I
think
say.
I can totally relate when you mention about traveling to the other side of the world. I mean, we travel for marathons and Ironmans, and
Yeah.
all of us, when we are traveling, we know that the amount of effort we have put in to even get to the start line is so huge.
So yeah.
We would just not allow any minor hiccups or some small injury to really stop us from getting to the finish
Yeah.
line. I mean, that junoon or that intensity to finish is far higher than a person coming next
Yes.
door and saying that, hey, I can come another time as well. So that helps as well, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes it helps to
Yes.
be coming from such a difficult background, the intensity and the seriousness, and it reflects. I mean, sometimes you don't need to call it. I mean, you had to scream and shout and allowed to continue, but sometimes the intensity on the face says it all, and people are like, I better not dare come in way of this girl.
Yeah.
That's going to be
I
difficult.
agree.
That's
Because if one crew fall sick, the entire crew has to stop the mission.
that's
And that's not something we are there for.
yeah.
And if someone is losing their psychological strength or mental strength, it's a team responsibility to take care of them and to let them believe in themselves again, because we want to be in there. He also have to be in there. Only
Yeah.
then we're going to finish the mission successfully, and we can't abort the mission in between. And it's not easy financially, mentally, and in every possible way.
No, and in fact, that's the other point that you mentioned, that maybe you're not concerned about yourself, but if the others in the mission have to also
Yeah.
abort the mission because something happens to you, that could be something you also would
Yes.
not want it. So then it's like,
Exactly.
okay, I can't go in with 99% readiness. I need to get that 1% also sorted.
1% also. Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
There was another incident I read somewhere about you spotting a potential asteroid, and how did that all happen? And what was the? What
Oh,
is?
that was when I was kid, like when I was 16 or 17. That's actually, it's an asteroid search campaign. It happens every year. And back then it was not really known by so many people, but these days so many schools and kids are actually getting
Mm-hmm.
aware of it. And it's actually by NASA. They actually gives you data from telescopes of NASA, and they also teach you how to work with the software, where
Yeah.
you can categorize the asteroids, meteors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're used to the software, how to use it, you have to verify the data that they're giving and evaluate. After evaluating, you'll understand which is an asteroid or which can be a potential asteroid. And that's how I ended up finding a provisional, like I ended up making a provisional discovery of an asteroid, which is not an asteroid yet, but
Yeah.
it can be in future because it has that potential characteristics or something.
What award you get for discovering an asteroid?
I got a certificate as a kid. Discovering a provisional asteroid.
Are they going to name the asteroid on you?
Yeah, I named it. I
Okay.
don't remember what I did, named it, but it was some numbers and alphabets. I'm sorry, bad at remembering that. Numbers and alphabets, but yes.
Tell us about one crazy idea that people doubted and you proved them wrong.
Me being in the space industry. I
You had a lot
still
of people
listen.
doubting you, people questioned you, they thought that was a stupid idea and all that.
Yeah, they did felt stupid idea when I told them that I want to build a big ladder and go to space, but not anymore now. But so many people, this industry is very small and everyone knows each other, and
Yeah.
I personally feel there are very few people who will be very happy with what you're doing in your life. It can be your achievement or it can be anything. It's not showing up is not always about getting attention, but it's about paving a path for coming generations or the kids who are questioning themselves or to come out of that zone. Because when I started this journey, there was literally no one who guided me. I
Mhm.
took every step by myself. There were steps that I fell and I bounced back and I did made a different step, and I'm still learning. I'm still in the process. So many people doubted, and including my own family. And
Hmm.
they were not really happy with what I'm doing because they want me to be in a profession which I don't want to be in which I was not at all ready. I don't want to be in a profession and just put myself in a room. I want to explore the world. I want to learn things, and I want money only to explore things. So that's what I feel. And
That's true. No, it does make sense. I mean, in fact, that's a point which is coming to my mind. Compared to engineering or medicine or arts, the field or the overall universe of people whom you can even talk to about going to space is grossly limited even now. So, how did you go about finding the right people to talk to, getting advice from in the initial stages? And why don't you just take us to that stage before you
so,
became what you became?
yeah, actually, COVID was the best time for me. I utilized COVID like anything because
Okay.
I started meeting. This is one guy whom I met from this asteroid search campaign, and he ran community where all the space people come and talk together. And it's a WhatsApp group actually. And
Mm-hmm.
this guy found how curious and how passionate I'm about space, and he actually added me in the group.
Okay.
So that's how it started. And slowly I started meeting people and I started joining Discord channels and started meeting other people and started participating in NASA different competitions like NASA Space Up Hackathon, where I won NASA People Choice Award along with my team. And that team was from Chennai. And
Okay.
I also worked on NASA Food Challenges and Rover Challenge, CubeSat Challenge. I started working in everything that was there during COVID because I
Okay.
had a lot of time and I want to utilize it for something that I'm really passionate about.
And you
And
had a laptop with an internet connection to connect with
yes, I had a
instruments.
laptop with internet connection, unlimited internet connection, no one to say no. And because I'm a single kid and my parents are like, okay, just do whatever you want to do, but don't put yourself in a trouble where our presence is required. So that's what they used to tell me.
We can't fly down to save you in case that happens.
Exactly. Right in seconds, no one can come to me. So that's a
True.
problem.
So obviously there are a lot of advantages of being away from your parents because of
Yeah,
content.
yeah. I
What are
did
the
so many.
disadvantages?
There's no one, literally no one to influence your
Hmm.
parent, like my parents,
Yeah.
because I've seen so many of my friends' parents getting influenced by other parents, saying, "Oh, why you just telling your daughter be an engineer? Why don't you send her to a NEET? Like, why don't you make her a doctor? What if she is dreaming for something else?" So that kind of pressure, it was never there on me, and my parents never bothered about marks. They
Hmm.
were always bothered about me being alone and they want me to explore the world. So that's the reason they started taking me to Kuwait when I was so
Yeah.
young. So they
Yeah.
want me to learn and explore more about world outside the world, not just the town that I'm leaving. That's how it gave me a good exposure at very young age, learning and talking to different people.
How did your life change after getting selected for the Titan mission last year? I'm sure you got a lot of recognition, a lot of people reached out to you, a lot of government recognition happened. What changed, and how does it feel to have a fan following at the age that you are?
Actually, it was there from 2021 where I started, like, I did my first International Air and Space program at one of the NASA center. It was there, and After years, it gradually went away, but people still know there's this girl from India who is doing this space stuff. This thing, the selection actually pulled back me into the limelight. Like it just gave me the limelight again with what I'm doing in my life.
Yeah.
Actually, attention gives you a lot of consequences. That's what I feel. That's it. I don't really want to talk more about this.
And what is the question that students ask you the most?
Most is how can they become one like me? So that was the most question. Most of my Instagram DMs or LinkedIn DMs we will fill with that the same question. And I would say just start. Just make the first move, because first step is always the biggest step. After that, it's just taking a small steps, and that's it. Because I never had a clear path. Even till today, I never had a clear path. It's just you going and exploring. Only then you'll know what is life and what is world. Based on that, you will have to plan your things out.
What is that one challenge or difficult step that you had to go through, which others should not?
Finding a right path.
Is there always the right path for everyone?
No, I don't say everyone has to make a right choice, but getting influenced by someone else and taking a choice can always lead you in something that, sometimes it happens for your good, but sometimes you never know.
Yeah.
I personally feel if I take a decision, it's up to me. I don't want to involve any other person or person's perspective, because my life is known by only me. I have a better knowledge on my life than anyone else. That's what I feel and believe. And I or you should know what suits you the best. You don't have to find someone's perspective, or you don't have to wait for someone's perspective to play a major role in your life.
That makes sense. You talked about ocean protection as well. How does that tie up with your overall space mission? What's the linkage and why you feel so passionately about ocean protection?
I see ocean filled with plastic than fishes these days. Whenever I go do some snorkeling in the shore, I end up getting stuck with so much of plastic in my hair and my attached to my boots. And I posted so many pictures of me doing this cleanup in ocean, ended up finding medical waste and a lot of plastic waste coming in there. I don't know how people are just doing it, but I did very little of cleaning. But my instructor, the guy that I was talking about, Subhash Chandran, I don't know, he pulled out tons of plastic from the ocean, but still ended up, but he did only from one place. He cleans up, and the next day he goes, he'll find new plastic there. You've been doing it. And I feel before we go colonize some other planet, at least we have to pay some respect to what you have currently. And at least doing from my end of cleaning will actually make me feel better. I don't know, but I feel very bad about oceans filling up with plastic than aquatic life. Even in the deepest part, like the deepest depth that I've been, I still found some plastic there. That's the saddest part.
That means humans have gone there before.
Yeah. Wherever we go, we spoil it.
I think a very similar example would be Mount Everest. The amount of debris which is left on Mount Everest,
it's a different story.
They go and come back, but they leave the debris behind. You're right. I mean, I won't be surprised if the number of missions to moon go up. We might have plastic bottles flying on the moon surface at some point of time, which obviously...
Maybe. I hope that doesn't happen, because everyone in the space industry, they really respect other planets, not other planets, but they don't really want to spoil the resources that they have at the moment. And because they know at some point we might not have any of these kind of resources, and we definitely have to.
But I think that's the point, the sense of responsibility. I mean, if I continue on the mountaineers going to Mount Everest, I'm sure they also go with a sense of responsibility. But there's a tourism element which is coming into mountaineering, which is probably very dangerous, because those people are just flashing money to the Sherpas and saying, okay, I want to go to the summit, please take me there. If the space tourism also picks up, tourists might not be as responsible as someone like you who's going through years of training before reaching there. And every time you go through that training, that point is reinforced. But someone who just flashes out $2 million and says, okay, take me to space, and he's taken, he or she might not show as much of responsibility that if my life depends on reducing my load, I might as well leave some trash behind and come back to Earth, save my life. So that's definitely a scary part. But space and moon is okay. You've been talking about going to Mars. So what have you learned about Mars expeditions, which is drastically different from anything else which has been talked about as far as space is concerned?
Yes, because Mars is not really close to us. It's very far, and it'll definitely take months to go there. And Elon Musk is trying very hard to at least launch the rocket to there. Yeah, I did my first Mars simulation in Utah very recently, like 2 months ago, and that was very good experience. See, Mars, we never know how our human body is designed to survive on Earth. But taking this design to a different planet, into different environment or different conditions, it will definitely needs a lot of training and a lot of strength to survive there, at least for some time, to build something for coming generations who wants to go to Mars or colonize Mars.
Interesting. You have had a unusual few 6-7 years being on multiple missions, traveling so frequently. Do you miss a normal college life?
No, my college was during COVID. So everything was online. 2.5 years it was online, and rest of the 1.5 years I used to go to college. I used to go give the exams, and 1 year I did internship. So it was like 6 months I had to manage very hard. I have to study, and I also have to give my exams and then come back.
And what's next for you?
Oh, I'm currently into some research. I'm into different research topics, and also I'm flying as a student pilot right now, and I want to earn my license and keep flying.
So, does
Yeah,
the research plan take you towards a PhD?
haven't decided it yet, but yes.
What would be the subject or the area of research that you will want to focus on?
Right now, I'm working on Martian regolith, but I might change my topic based on my interest by the time.
Got
Right
it.
now, I'm working on regolith and
And how
some
do you,
astrobiology stuff.
and where do you want to do it from? Have you shortlisted the university which you would want to work or apply?
No, not yet. I want to take some time before I actually decide something and take the step forward.
And
Yeah.
how far are you from getting your pilot license?
I think 2 months or 3 months more of me getting my first license.
Who are you most keen to have as passengers on your first flight?
Very good question. I don't want to take anyone with me on my first flight. I don't want to risk
I told you
anyone's
to take
life.
my parents.
No. I'm sure my dad's gonna come with me. I'm sure my mom's never's gonna take the first flight of mine. Yeah, I don't know. She might take, but that's what I feel like. She might say no. But my dad, yes, he'll definitely be next to me.
What is the most divergent alternative career you could have been on if you're not doing what you're doing?
I don't have plan B ever. Like I never thought of having a plan B, but maybe I had a degree in engineering. I might end up being an engineer or something if
No, that won't be divergent enough. I'm saying completely contrast. Something.
I would definitely do something farming, because I really like stay with plants, and the other things that I love most is animals. Whenever I have time, I go spend time with animals like pets.
We talked about food. Does cooking interest you? Do you do a cooking?
Yeah, I do cook.
What all do you cook?
Everything I cook. Biryani, I make sambar and all of that.
So if I'm ever invited, I can have a full course meal.
Yeah, of course. You can have a proper South Indian meal at my home. You're always welcome.
Very interesting. Do you read a lot of books? Any books that has inspired you?
One book that actually made me feel confident was the autobiography of Chris Hadfield. This guy's story is really good. And the other book was Wings of Fire by Abdul Kalam.
Okay.
Sir. And yeah, these are the two. But I don't have a particular interest of, reading this set of books.
Yeah.
I usually get referred by something and I just read it. There's one more book I read very recently, Surrounded by Stupids. The book is...
Surrounded by Idiots, I think.
Yeah, Surrounded by Idiots or something. But yeah, it is actually referred by an Indian astronaut to me while I was in the Martian mission. So I read it and it was very good. It really helps people to understand other people's perception and have different mindset people actually work.
Your biggest fanboy moment, meeting a celebrity that you really were inspired by?
I think meeting first astronaut. I met an astronaut first time when I was 18. That was at NASA's Alabama Center. I was crying and weeping and I was so excited to just touch him to see if he's real or not. And
Did you insist on he wearing the space suit for you to meet?
Oh no, he was just coming with the flight suit, but I was weeping and crying. I had to go out of the auditorium and control myself, and then I had to come back, and I waited to everyone to leave so that I can just stay there and have the fangirl moment and talk to him. And it was really nice. And he was Ken Cameron, and it was really good.
Do you remember what
Later,
he told you? Do you recollect any of the conversation that you had at that time?
I couldn't speak anything. I was just literally crying, and that guy was laughing at me like, "It's okay, you're good, you're good." Like he's trying to control me, and he gave me a hug, and that's it. That was the story.
And you been to ISRO and NASA both?
Yeah. I was there at ISRO Shar, Sriharikota Center twice. Yeah.
Compare the two. Tell us what stood out between the two. What kind of experience ISRO gave you versus what kind of experience NASA gave you?
I can't compare both of that. Both of that has a different race at the moment. And ISRO, I was there for experiencing center, like kind of a tour. And then I was there again to give a guest lecture for ISRO's World Space Week. And we are actually evolving a lot. NASA is, I can't compare, as I said. NASA does have so many public museums and other centers where you can actually go visit. And I think ISRO has now started centers, outreach centers. One in Hyderabad, where you can go visit and explore more about the missions of India and what is India doing currently and what's their future plans. The more outreach we do, the more people will understand what actually we are doing. And
got it. Any parting messages for young aspirants? Anything that you would want people to remember from your own experience and your journey?
I would say just take the step. Don't wait. Like your dreams doesn't have to wait for permission. All they have to do is take the first step and decide the path later. And you never have to have the clear path. I'm sure if your attempt and if you really have the genuine thing to do something in your life, then you'll definitely end up at some place where you're actually dreaming right now, or maybe in a better place than what you dreamed of. Keep dreaming and keep moving forward.
Yeah, that has been a wonderful conversation, Janvi. Thank you very much, and hope to see
Thank
you achieving all your dreams and going beyond that.
Thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.